Good morning. This week's Parsha is Parshat Beha'alotcha, where a superficial translation simply means that God tells Moshe, Daber el Aaron v'mata elav, tell Aaron, Daber el Aaron, first it says speak to Aaron, v'mata elav, and you should tell him, Beha'alotcha et hanerot el mul pnei hamara ya'iru shivat hanerot. And here he's discussing the candelabra that was lit in the tabernacle and subsequently in the Beit HaMikdash. What is the purpose? As it has become traditional that we light candles Friday night, on the Chag, many other occasions where candles represent the light. But we have here the familiar Zohar that's quoted very often by Kabbalists to dispel what they understood, including Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What they understood would be the antitheses of light, darkness. And they understood that this idea of lighting candles or creating light in the world would become misunderstood. And therefore this whole idea of the Torah subsequently would become totally incomprehensible, and consequently, like the Zohar says, because of its misunderstanding or incomprehension, what would subsequently follow is that people would never abide by the rules of the Torah, because all it would remain would be the superficial interpretation. And so I read from the Zohar, Rabba Patach, Asheham Yodei Tzruah Hashem Bor Panechi Halecho. This is a verse in Tehillim by King David, where he says, praiseworthy is the nation that knows the Tzruah of Hashem, the blowing of Hashem, referring, of course, to the blowing of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Bo panechi alechu, and the light of thy face shall they go. Aval boorei, come and see. Ashehem Yisrael, what does it mean? Praiseworthy is the nation that knows these blasts of the shofar. Shakadosh Baruch Hu natan lehem haTorah hakdosha. The Lord gave the Torah, limadotam drachav, and He taught them His ways, lihitavek bo, so that we can connect with Him. Lishmo mitzvot haTorah lezachot bahem leolam haba, and therefore we can by observing lishmo mitzvot haTorah lezachot bahem leolam haba. If we notice, the Zohar does not say, and when you fulfill the precepts. Could have said, Olakayim, mitzvot haTorah. In other words, this is the usual understanding of the Torah. When we observe all of the precepts of the Torah, then of course, all of the good that comes, as he says here, we then can have Olam Haba. Again, Olam Haba is referring to after death. That is the usual interpretation of Olam Haba. One day in the future. Does that mean that while we inhabit this earth for the reasons of tikkun or whatever, that means that this world can never be this physical mundane world can never be a world that one can enjoy, or one can have the security, one can have all of the promises that ultimately is ours, that supposedly comes to us after death. What about why we're here? So therefore he says, he does not say ula kayem, he says ula shmo. What does shamo mean? To keep, watch it, keep track of it. Just like there is a whole discourse in the Talmud of Baba Kama, one of the tractates of the the Babylonian Talmud, in which there is discussion of, if I should require the services of someone to watch my cattle, and I pay him. He's called a shomer shachar. Well, shomer does not mean he observes them. I mean, he watches them. He watches them, takes care of them. That does not mean he, as we understand, shomer Shabbat means to observe the Shabbat. You observe it. What do you mean you observe it? The word is not observed. Shomer means you watch it. Well, what are you watching? You're watching the cattle, how they're moving and so on. The Shomer HaShabbat is the same idea. You observe it. You watch its movement. You flow with its movement. It is not a question of l'kayem et ha-mitzvot. In other words, your obligation is to fulfill the precepts. Never was intended like that. And l'olam haba, which is commonly used as an expression of the hereafter, means olam haba is referring to this world. Why is it called olam haba? It is the world that ultimately will come. Where is olam haba? Somewhere up there in heaven? Or do we say it's right here? As we learned in the Talmud Esesfirot, this world is considered an empty space. What does it mean, an empty space? That everything, as we observe as empty space, really is filled. If we should extinguish these lights in the room, now it's dark. When the lights are on, we suddenly observe the light. When we put those lights on, the space becomes filled with light. The world is filled with light. It's filled with light at the present time. The only problem is, and this is not the light that really supports us. This light permits us to read. This light permits us to walk through this synagogue. But what else does it do for us? Does it heal? Does it provide us with information concerning the future? No, it hasn't got these properties. Because this is only for us an example, a symbol of what light means. It means it illuminates for us things. It provides, or it removes the darkness that obstructs the physical ways that one goes through life. So there is no empty space. But because of the purpose of tikkun, we learned that God removed the light. And if we restore the light, then we have olam haba. That is the world to come. The ultimate world. Doesn't mean after death. That interpretation somehow aroused in Judaic literature, but it has no connotation. It should say after death. If that's what it means, all of the benefits that accrue to man after death will come at that time. But it says olam haba. It is the world that will come, the world that was, and the world that will again come. And what did God do? He brought them close. He brought them close to him. What happened? This is all referring to what the light does. Because when he brought him close to him, What happened when he brought them close to him? They became united. They became one unified whole with his name. Vaz nikra Yisrael b'nei chorin mikol. In other words, then they are truly free people. Then they were called free people. They were not called free people when they left Egypt, as we commonly accept the idea that going out of Egypt was the freedom that the Jews acquired. And that's not true, says the Zohar. Because if one has to suffer the inequalities of life, if one has to suffer the pain and suffering of life, the illness of life, and many other things that accompany mankind throughout his journey into life's existence. What's the difference where he lives? Suffering can follow him from one country to another. Not because you leave one country does it necessarily become a haven or a paradise in another country. And therefore the Zohar makes it very clear that when they went out of Egypt, they were not referred to as free people. The idea of bondage was not that they were slaves, as we have discussed on many occasions, that they were removed from bondage. To become free required that they became connected with the light. When they became connected with the light, then they had all of the benefits of Olam Haba. What are the benefits of Olam Haba? Benefits of Olam Haba is the paths that are all lit for you. You see exactly where you have to go. You see exactly what you have to do. Can you imagine 5 years hence? What will medicine look like? As we look back in the year 1999, we look back at medicine as we look now back at medicine 30 years ago, 50 years ago. We see that was primitive medicine as compared to modern day medicine. 5 years from today, we will look back at medicine and we'll say, look at that, look how primitive it was. Well, what happened between now and 5 years hence? Problem is, because that which already exists has not yet become revealed. After all, medicine never discovers something that didn't exist. They didn't put together some new ideas. It's all of the material already, and someone comes up with an idea one day, assumingly, he assumes that it's his idea, and suddenly new dimensions in medicine and new dimensions in whatever come into existence. But they didn't originate at that moment. They've been here all along. That's called Olam Haba. That is what's referred to as the unrevealed world. The world to come. The world that exists, but is not yet revealed. And therefore, when the Jews became connected with the name, and that's why to us the 72 names are so important, because there is no other connection to the light, except, says the Zohar, litached bishmo. Bishmo. It didn't say litached in his mitzvot, because, well, then what are the mitzvot? As we have already learned on many occasions. What are the mitzvot? The mitzvot are merely here to prepare us so that if someone is evil, someone steals, someone murders, and someone does all of the negative activity prohibited by the Torah. What do you mean it's prohibited? Do it if you want to. However, that does not provide a cleansing. That does not provide a preparation of your vessel to begin to make use of the names. It is only through the names that the lights become revealed. Now, these lights can become revealed only for those who make use of the name. Well, if it becomes revealed for the person, does that mean it becomes revealed for everyone? Unfortunately, no. Well, how could it become revealed for one person and not for another? But we understand that two people can be listening to one lecturer, and one gets the idea and the other one didn't understand it. But the words were the same. So you say, well, the mind of one wasn't capable of understanding. Yes, that's right. So although it's revealed, it still remains unrevealed for those who are not prepared, who are not qualified, whatever the reasons are. The fact that something is revealed does not mean it becomes automatically revealed for everyone. When we say that, similar to a darkened room. When one person flips the switch, it goes on for everyone. Then why isn't this the case with Olam Haba? That's where there's a difference. As I pointed out before, these lights, unfortunately, do not heal an ill person. The sun is a healing component. Although today we can only think of the sun as something that is damaging, something that is harmful, and that is not true. And what about the rays of the sun? The Torah, the Talmud, the Zohar never discusses the sun in a negative way. The sun is only positive. If the sun is only positive, then how come different things happen? Sun burned and so on. That's the rule. That's the rule. How come when you connect an appliance of 110 into a 220, why does it burn? Nobody asked that question. Why don't you ask that question? Because the receptacle is not prepared to receive that kind of energy. Everyone understands that. It's not ready. It's not qualified. So the problem is not that the sun is harmful or electricity is harmful, because don't you see what it did to this appliance? It burnt it out. So therefore there must be something wrong with electrical current if it can burn out an appliance. Everyone laughs at that kind of explanation. And the normal response would be, you should have used a transformer. You can use that electrical current, but use it with moderation. Use it. But that doesn't imply that the energy itself is bad. And we're discussing here the light. And therefore, to connect with the light, it can only be with his name, with the different names that we make use of. These are not 72 names. These are the names. Now, how do you prepare your vessel so to prevent overexposure, etc.? That's the rest of the Torah. To prevent exposure. The Torah itself, connections with the mitzvot, by and within themselves, do not create the connection. Zohar makes it very clear here that that they became bnei chorin, they became free people only and when they became unified with his name. And then they were called bnei Yisrael, bnei chorin. And then there's, on the same idea, Patak Rabbi Lazar, and he says, Vatanach HaTeva b'chodesh hashvi, discussing the deluge, the flood, that on the 7th month, the ark rested on Mount Ararat. And the Zohar, this is the famous Zohar. Kama chavivim eim divrei Torah, shekol milah umilah yesodot elyonim, v'Torah kula nikrat elyonah. How beloved is the words of the Torah, because each and every single word contains secrets, hidden concepts, meaning the words themselves are like a package that contains an article. Is the article there? Of course it's there. Does that mean I cannot access into it? No. Of course you can. But you have to open up the box. You're in possession of the box, you're in possession of the article, but if you never open up the box, you're never in possession of the article, despite the fact that you're holding in your possession this box with this, whatever is contained within the box. So too is this entire Torah. Ki ha-Torah shi klal elyon. This is the general rule of everything that exists in the Torah, in the world. Even though sometimes we have very simple stories of the Torah, It does not come to tell us about this particular story. And throughout the Torah, we have many stories, most famous of which is the Exodus of the Jews from Egypt. That is a story. Says the Zohar very clearly. The Zohar, the Torah, is not coming to enlighten us with a story. Ela laharot devarim elyonim v'sodot elyonim. But only to provide us and enlighten us with upper words or upper matters, mysterious matters, concealed matters. It did not come for the purpose of telling us a story about Passover. כי השיפוש ההוא של התורה או מעשה ההוא, אף על פי שיצא מכלל התורה, לא להראות על עצמו בלבד, אלא להראות על כלל העליון. It comes to reveal everything there is. This box is the opportunity. These words, the whole Torah is a capsule in which it does not want to tell us a story about the box, as unfortunately the entire world, it's still, after all, the Bible is still the bestseller since time immemorial. It's still the most sold volume of any other volumes in the world, and yet it is the most misunderstood or least understood of any book that has ever been written. Because, says the Zohar, we're observing the Torah, we're observing this box, which did not come for the purpose of revealing the box. It came to reveal that which was concealed within the box. And therefore, when it says, in the 7th month, it was on the 17th day of the month of Cheshvan, where the ark came to rest. He says, what is the difference if the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat or it came to rest on another mountain? I mean, does it make any difference? Certainly to us today, where it rested, we don't even know where it rested. We can't even go. There's still expeditions, mind you, of almost, let's say, 4,700 years later, there's still expeditions looking for Mount Ararat, looking for the lost Ark of Noah, expecting to find something there. Well, an antiquity. But the Zohar says, what's the difference on which mountain it rested? It doesn't have to rest on some mountain. It's going to come to rest. After all, the entire world was covered, and the mountains are those that would reach at the highest point. So it would first touch some mountain somewhere around the globe. And therefore he answers, Ki romez al zman hadin. It's come to tell us about the month. It's come to tell us about the month of Scorpio. It's a month of din. The minute you attach that word to Mount Ararat, and of course, as he will say shortly, what does Ararat mean? What does it mean? It's a mountain like any other mountain. And it is a mountain like any other mountain. So it's not coming to teach us about Mount Ararat. That is not what's significant. What is significant is the fact that it rested in this month. This month teaches us that it's a month of din. It's a month of difficulties. It's a month where you have exposure, overexposure, or it is a month where we have the least ability to prepare ourselves to receive the light, and therefore we've exposed ourselves to this overexposure of the light. That's how simple it is. So the name Ararat is not significant to give us a name of the mountain. Make no difference. However, Ararat comes from the word Arur, cursed, as the Zohar will state. That has a different connotation. Telling us that on this 7th month, which is the month of Scorpio, represents Din. That's a whole different idea. It's teaching us something for today. It's not important to know where Mount Ararat is. There's no reason for expeditions. There's no reason to find the Ark, because that's not what the Torah was coming to tell us. Some historical event that took place some 4,700 years ago, and so we'll find out that this is what it was. That's how they lived, and they had so many bathrooms in the Ark. This is what science is doing for us today. This is what they spend billions of dollars. Does it provide any assistance for us today? None whatsoever. Same way as the expedition to the moon. In what way has this expedition somehow benefited mankind? The answer is, after all of these expeditions, nothing of any value has come for the benefit of mankind. And then the Zohar, to stress the point, says, let's take a melech basar adam. Is it proper for a king to speak in diburi hediot? It doesn't just mean layman's language, but it doesn't even mean the language of the common man, because would that indicate that common man speaks a language which is not beholden of a king, but a language that doesn't say anything, a language that has no meaning, a language that does not express the true understanding of what's being said. Is Koch came with Tovatam, so why would God, just to tell us a story about Mount Ararat, if there is no purpose, but just for the sake of speaking, for the sake of not enlightening us, but providing us with even information. He could have used other words. Like, what kind of words did he use? We're talking about Esau, Hagar, Lavan, Divrei Aton. We're talking about a donkey, Divrei Bilam, Divrei Balak. These people are supposedly evil. And all of these things he assembles, and he makes from them a Torah. Why is it called the Torah of truth? Torah of truth. It's not called a book. It's not called the Torah of history. It's called the Torah of truth. Torah emet. Elavade ha-Torah ha-Gdosha al-Yonah hi Torah emet. Kol milah umilah ba laharot dvarim elyonim. But as he stated before, the story is not coming to refer or to enlighten us concerning that which is written. It has, insofar as that which is written, it is not coming to lo yasa dava mimenu, for the thing itself. To enlighten us concerning these events. That includes the exodus of Egypt. The Torah did not state the exodus of Egypt to enlighten us that the Jews once went out of Egypt. That's not the purpose. He wouldn't create the Torah, he wouldn't write the Torah to create a historical document. There is no purpose in creating a historical document. But rather, this historical document was the package by which God could create for us what? the inner secrets, the inner machinations of the universe, so that we can understand that if we want to flow with the universe, if we want to flow with the music of this world, of the events of this world, we can only arrive and only achieve this movement, flowing with it rather than moving against it, as well. Unfortunately, most of us, without the knowledge of Kabbalah, we have no way of knowing of how the tide's running. We may be running, maybe swimming upstream, maybe swimming against the tide. And so it's like walking up a down escalator. When do you reach the top? When do you reach your destination? Maybe never. Maybe never. For every step taken, you may be going 2 steps down. The escalator might be going down quicker than you are ascending. So therefore, the Zohar, in his connection with these lights, the idea of the lights, is there only to enlighten us. To enlighten us. Even these lights, the lights that were lit by Aaron in the tabernacle, were not there so, well, how else would he be able to see how to work in the tabernacle? He needed some form of lights, and therefore there was a candelabra. How else would he have lights if not through a candelabra? Says the Zohar. We should not treat this idea here as a story telling us what took place in the tabernacle, but rather, when the Torah discusses that Aaron lit these lights, what he was doing, as the Zohar will shortly explain, what he was doing was bringing energy into this world. What he was doing is bringing light. What is light? Today, only today, not 500 years ago, not even 200 years ago, that they understand that light is energy. One time we only thought that electricity was energy. Horses were energy, horsepower. We still use the word horsepower. What motivates an automobile? Horsepower. This physical power is what makes this engine move. And we know today that's not true. Not true. There is an internal, the motor itself is not completely inanimate, but certainly is not the force. Is the fuel the force? You ignite the fuel. That's not the force. When there's combustion, or when this fuel is ignited, you then have what? You're getting closer to the illumination of light. You're getting closer to the illumination of energy, which today they recognize as the most potent form of energy. Most potent form of energy is light. Although they're still under the misunderstanding, like the sun. The sun is almost an infinite source of energy. Although they still think that after maybe 99 million years, we may lose the sun as a reservoir for the energy of the sun. So, I mean, I think it's something we all got to go home and not sleep, since 99 million years, the sun will no longer be able to provide the energy that this world requires for its existence. But this is where their thinking is. Anyway, so this idea of lighting the candelabra, is clear that it was not for this specific purpose of just to enlighten us. Well, how did Aaron get around in the tabernacle? Maybe they had some skylights, so during the day, if the sun was shining, he could see what he was doing. What about at night? That was not the purpose. He did not require this candelabra for that purpose. All right. Then the Zohar continues Patzach Rabbi Yossi, Beha'alotcha et haneirot, Beha'alotcha mamash, dainu b'hadlakatcha. It says Beha'alotcha. And how is the interpretation Beha'alotcha? And here again is another indication, as usual in the Torah, how corruption would set in. Speak to Aaron and say to him, Beha'alotcha et hanerot, when you light the lamps. But we know the Hebrew word for lighting is lahadlik. Even when we light our Hanukkah candles, what's the word for lighting? Lahadlik. Dalek. Dolek. So what does it mean, Beha'alotcha? Halotcha comes from the word aliyah, to raise up. When you raise up the candles, well, that doesn't sound right. You mean he takes the candles, in this case he was using oil. So what does he do? He takes the glass and raises up the candles, or if it's oil. El mul pnei hamnorah, they should all face ya'iru, the word, and ya'iru shivat hanerot, so that these 7 lights shall light. Well, what else does candles do if not light? Says Rabbi Yossi, that's not what was happening here. Not what was happening. Ki naseh al yedei hakohen beit avodat shehem kesher echad. Well, just to light the candle, I'm sure they could have taken anybody other than the Kohen and ignite these candles that were in the tabernacle. So he says, Shemen uktorat. There were 2 things that the Kohen did. There was Shemen, oil, and Ktorat, incense, which, says Rabbi Ashlag, which was Chachma and Bina. These two have the quality. These 2. The oil, when we light oil, when the Kohen in the tabernacle lit this oil, what was he doing? You have a wick, you suddenly see a flame, you have light. Was the purpose again, like Hanukkah, same idea? Was it to create a light? No. By lighting that wick, what he said before the Zohar, what becomes revealed is something that oil contains, and yet, when you look at the oil, you might use it for salad, for other reasons. You do not reveal by spreading a little oil over your salad, do you reveal the internal, that concealed, that olam haba ingredient within oil. When you light the oil, what you create is an internal energy called chachma. That internal energy is revealed. It's there. It was always there. But it's like the seed with the apple. The apple is there before you plant the seed. But we live in this world where things are concealed and therefore must become revealed. That's our purpose here. To reveal that which already exists. Everything. Was this table here? Let's say this table. For those of you who attend services here in this synagogue, is this table usually here? No. The answer is no. Well, now it seems that they just brought this table, and this table now becomes revealed in this place. The answer is, this table has always been here. Everything has always been here. Just like tomorrow has always been here. Tomorrow only has an ability, time has an ability to become revealed without our effort. And do you know what the punishment for that is? That time becomes revealed without our effort. Know what the punishment is? That the moment it becomes revealed, it's yesterday. It's no longer even today. The moment it becomes revealed, which means the present, it's already yesterday. The next moment of time on your clock, it's 1 minute after 5. The minute it's 1 minute after 5, it's 1 minute and 1 second after 5. It already is part of the past. You can't hold on to time. Does that mean we can't hold on to time? We can hold on to time. Einstein proved that time is not what we thought it was. And it's not what we thought it is. It's still not what we think it is. What is time? Time is a gauge by which we measure how long do people live. Well, today women, the average lifespan is 81 for women, and for men, I think it's 76 or 77. What's going to happen in 5 years hence? Well, the way it's been going, from 46 for a male to 76 in such a short period of time. It took thousands of years to descend down to 46 from Adam, who lived 930 years, and went down to 46, and now it's going up. It took so many years to go down, and now all of a sudden, within the past less than 100 years, it's gone from 46 up to 76. And it's expected that it should go to the average by 2000 to be 100. 100 years. What does that mean? What's happened here? Well, time that once meant a framework. Time is a framework. Past, present, how many years, statistics are all talking, those that are referring to time. It's something that changes. Why is time, why does time change? Because we have no control over time. We are not in a position or we don't know how to restrict things, how to control things. What is restriction if not control? So time just flows by us. It comes easy. It becomes revealed without our effort. But that which becomes revealed by our effort does not become part of past history. It stays with us. This table required an effort to be brought here. It'll stay here as long as we intend to remove it. Why doesn't it disappear? As it wasn't here the moment it came here. Because it required an effort. When there is an effort involved in any action, easy come, easy go. Isn't that the old saying? Easy come, easy go. What does that mean, easy come, easy go? Why? So if it was easy to come, why must it be easy to go? Why must it disappear as well? Why can't it stay? Why does it require all this effort? Because without effort, it's like time. It comes, and because there is no restriction, effort means restriction. If there's no restriction involved, then it will disappear. The reason that this table is here and remains here, it's revealing that which was. After what is this table? Then we have to get into this consciousness. We better get there quickly, because this is that way we're gradually moving into control over our destiny. This is the way we're going to begin to see things like we've never seen them before. This is the way we'll begin to understand things like we never understood them before, and not depending on the capacity of my IQ and not on the capacity of my intelligence. It will depend on the level of how I make an effort to achieve consciousness. That means if you have an IQ of 16 and someone has an IQ of 160, the one who makes no effort will remain with his IQ of 160. But is that the total limit? Is that as far as we can go? How come some people invent things and it doesn't depend on his IQ? Well, he got a flash, whatever that means. Where it requires, if it contains an effort, that's why we stress restriction, because how else do you make an effort? Yes, a matter as simple as bringing a table in, it requires an effort, and therefore the table will stay here. When we remove the table, does that mean we've actually removed the table? No. Table, after all, the table is only 1% of the atoms. Can you have a table here? And can you have a chair here? Can you have all these different things here? The answer is of course. Well, could you picture a table occupying 7 other tables in the same space? No, the rational mind doesn't see it so much, but it's the same atoms that will fill up both of them. It's the other aspect. It's how we can't judge, we can't move, we can't make movement with the physicality, because the rational mind has a limited capacity to physicality. That wasn't the function of the physical mind. Physical mind was never intended to understand. In fact, I call it, because it's obvious, I call the rational mind satanic consciousness. It's the satanic consciousness that creates this bilbul, that creates all the confusion. We have always been programmed into an assumption that the mind, IQ, the mind is how you understand things around you. The answer is that the mind, the rational mind, the conscious mind as we know it, is our worst enemy. Why is it our worst enemy? Because it is the rational mind that creates the limitations by which we can't see 48,000 tables occupying the same space. And yet we were told that Yaakov was lying on a little piece of earth, dimension of maybe, let's say, 6 feet. I don't know how tall he was, 6 feet by 2 feet. And all the land of Israel was brought together. The whole land of Israel occupied the space right under Yaakov. Can the rational mind conceive that? No. Rational mind, as it observes the surface of the earth, and you know when you want to travel from here to Olympic Avenue, you know that you look down and you see down in the corners Olympic Avenue. Olympic Avenue is not here, so obviously land occupies space. How could Olympic Avenue be right here? Does the rational mind comprehend that? No. Scientifically, is it correct? The answer is no. Scientifically. Well, now that you heard me say scientifically, it's incorrect. Well, now maybe you're going to have to begin to accept something that the rational mind does not want to accept. It is because the rational mind is our worst enemy. It is the rational mind that limits and prevents the illumination. That's its purpose. The rational mind is what Satan makes use of, so as we never receive the total illumination of any particular subject, the total illumination of any particular circumstances, the total elimination of a business decision or whatever other decision. It's the rational mind that prevents the illumination. Therefore, when we talk about Olam Haba, we talk about what did Aaron do over here. Aaron was revealing what's happening today for us. That there are people who once they made that decision, scientists have not made the decision. They have to grapple with that idea. Time is not what we thought it was. Space is not what we thought it was. How much space does an astronaut cover in 1 minute? 1 hour. How much space? How much he covers? 1,000 miles. How could he cover 1,000 miles? How much space how much time does it take to cover 200 feet? Well, he's lying on 200 feet at one time, because divide 1,000 miles. Divide 1,000 miles into 1 second. You have about 200 feet. in less than a second, which our minds can't comprehend it already. Less than a second. He's occupying 100 feet. He's on 100 feet, but his body is only 2 feet wide. How does he occupy? These are some of the ideas that we present here in the class only for well, that's a technique. That's not the way. That's not the way your rational mind you become free. This is what the Zohar means. How do you become free? How do you become free from these limitations? Only by the illumination of the light. When the path is there, you know what's going to happen with the rational mind? Since the rational mind is darkness, rational mind is Satan, when you flip a switch, what happens? The light goes on, darkness disappears. The limitation of the conscious mind, which right at this moment is too much for us to grasp. For many of us, I'm not saying all of us, many of us, some of us have already overcome this problem of the limitation of, well, this is what sounds logical. What sounds logical is probably unreal. What is fantasy? What is imagination? You know, that's what Einstein got his Nobel Prize for. Not for his theory of relativity. He never got his Nobel Prize for theory of relativity. What he received the Nobel Prize for was his imagination. But imagination is not real. That is what's real. That which is not limited by Satan consciousness. Well, how does that happen? How do you remove this block? Put on the light. Then you become free. Why do you mean you become free? You're free of this limitation, of these shackles that have been placed on us by this conscious mind, by the rational conscious mind. And therefore, Beha'alotcha et hanerot, says the Zohar. What was he doing with the oil? What was the oil doing? It was revealing the Sphira of Chachma. The level of Chachma, which you all are familiar with. Shemenek Toret Yisamech Lev. Those are the things that makes your heart feel good. Well, the answer is, you know that restaurants that have candle lighting are probably more expensive than those who only have electrical lighting. They charge more. You don't have candles in a cheap restaurant. You ever figure out why they don't put candles? Look how nice it looks. Why did McDonald's put candles on their tables? What would be wrong? Is it so prohibitive, the cost, to put a candle in? Why don't they put candles? Well, it's such a simple idea. Maybe one day someone will bring it to them. But all these years they couldn't think, or in fact, not only McDonald's, but all the others. In fact, every cheap restaurant doesn't put a candle. The ones that charge you more on the bill for the same thing, those are the ones that give you the candle. I mean, where's the logic? No control over that. No control over that. Anyway, that's the way you might even say, because that makes you feel good with candlelight. Why does it make you feel good? Why? Well, it does. Why? Because it's drawing out. It's like from this seed, which is total concealment. It conceals. It's like the Torah conceals everything. But from this concealment, from this box, when you open this box by lighting the candle, what he did, Beha'alotcha et hanerot, Beha'alotcha et hanerot, he created an aliyah. What do you mean an aliyah? Well, doesn't the candles go up? Doesn't the flame go up? That's why it's called aliyah, some say. But that's not either what it means. The Zohar said what it means. It's connecting the upper realm. What is the upper realm? Why do we use the word upper realm? Well, upper is beyond us. If it's the lower realm where we are, well, that's something right next to us. It's something which is not right next to us. Well, is this empty space next to us? Of course it is. But for us, it seems to be Out there. It's the expression. Out there. Where out there? Somewhere out there. No, out there means only to the extent that I have no control. I have no connection with it. Out there doesn't mean there. Out there simply means I haven't got my hand on it. I haven't got a handle on it. That's what out there means. Once the light goes on, then that which was there and is there now becomes revealed for me. And therefore, it does not mean Beha'alotcha et hanerot, that he lit the candles. Lit the candles is insignificant. Of course, how else, if he didn't light the candle, how else would this candelabra go on? Then he goes on to other things, but there was another matter that I wanted to in this week's Parsha. And strangely enough, in this week's Parsha, in page 11 of Beha'alotcha in the Zohar, Lamed Gimel, we have what seems to be almost a repetition of that which we already have learned in Parshat Beshalach. In paragraph Lamed Gimel 33, Tiv, Vayisa Malach Halakim Haolech, Malach, and that's of course referring to the 3 verses of the 72 letters, and where we have achieved the tablet of the 72 names. And here, although this had already been discussed fully in Parshat Beha'alotcha, the Zohar again is coming to discuss this idea of Vayisa, Vayavo, Vayet. Those are the three words by which each verse begins. Says the Zohar, Vayisa Malach Halakim Haolech Mikazehu Keseder. This verse is Keseder, means as it appears. Why? Mishum Sha'Avraham Nimsa Kan Shu Chesed Kav Yamin. V'kol Elo Habayim Mitzido. And everything. This verse, the first verse of Vayisa, that's 19, 20, and 21 in Parshat Beha'alotcha, Parshat Beshalach. Kol elu b'habayim mitzido. Everything comes from his side. And therefore, al ken ha'otiyot ein keseder ke'in zeh. Therefore, if you notice in the tablet, this verse, the first verse, you will notice how you have it beginning with the Vav, and you'll have the second box with a Yud, and you'll have the third box with a Samach. Then you have, I think that's what it is. Am I right? No? Yeah. Okay. And the third and the fourth box is with a Naya. Right? It goes. Each box begins with the way the word flows. Vayisa Vayavram. If you notice in the second letters of the boxes, in other words, the first box you have a Vav, then you have Vayisa Vayavo. It does not begin with a Vav. There's no Vav in the second. Why? Because we're taking the last letter of that verse. Last letter in Beshalach. The last letter is in verse 20. The last word is halayla. Now you'll notice that the second letter, which is referring to the second verse, runs contrary. In other words, it begins in reverse. You have the first box with the second letter is a hey, and then you'll notice that the second box which the second letter is the second verse, is a lamed, because it is going the reverse from the last back to the first. And vayet, we then begin the procedure again as we did in the first verse. It'll be, the third letter will be the vav. The third letter will be the vav in the first box, since we're talking about the letter vayet, we're talking about the word vayet, and he bent, or he extended, Moses extended his hand on the sea, and you'll notice that in the second box, the last letter is a yud. It runs the same gamut as the first verse. In other words, the central column, Tiferet, which is Yaakov, runs along the same system as Chesed. All right, that's the way these boxes were constructed. Important to know. Part of knowing, which makes a stronger connection. Now he says, these letters, from this verse, Vayisa Malach Elokim, is it just telling us a story? Just to translate, an angel of death traveled, and he was traveling before the camp of the Israelites, and he was going after them. And then a pillar of cloud, traveled before them and stood after them. An event, says the Zohar, of course not. Each and every single one of these letters in this verse, each and every single letter in this verse is generating what kind of energy? Because we're talking about Beha'alotcha. That's why he's talking about. Whenever you have revelation, remember what we said last week concerning Vayhi bin Soa Ha'aron. There we used it, but in this week's Parsha, we actually have it. What is the connection? Why is it here? In this week's Parsha, we will have the actual, we have a lot of combinations, which we're not going to be able to get into in this short period of time. But in this week's Parsha, familiar by Ibn Saharon, that in all synagogues at the time of taking the Torah from the Ark, which is recited and sung so beautifully, etc., and also its returning of the scroll to the Ark in this verse, in these two verses, is referring to what? Telling us about they carry the Ark and they put the Ark down. Had no meaning. And therefore the Zohar already stated in Parshat Naso that when we're discussing Bin Soa Ha'aron, we're talking about generating energy. No less, as we understand that in order for us to have this electrical current, so we think, in order to generate electrical current, or to generate any mechanical device, you must have electrical current coming in from an electric power station. Now we think that maybe we can generate energy from the sun. Soon, not in the too distant future, we will be generating energy. But what kind of energy? Not energy that ultimately dissipates itself, and therefore, that's how the electric company exists. Why are they afraid of solar energy? It's too abundant, and it doesn't cost as much, and won't cost as much, and therefore they can't charge as much. So there's been this controversy. But in short, what each one is actually doing is the electrical current energy. No, it's a vehicle by which it reveals. We've been discussing that this Parsha is only discussing illumination, revelation. That's what Aaron was doing. Revealing things that are there. Fuel, petroleum, electrical current, solar energy. All of these different methods by which energy becomes revealed. But what is that energy? It's the light force. Beha'alotcha et hanerot. We are extending that which is above and beyond us, that which is olam haba, that which we somehow do not have control over. If we had control over that, we wouldn't need electrical current, we wouldn't need the solar system. We could manufacture ourselves through the 72 names. Through these 72 names, we could be generating our own energy. And that's what we do. That's why, what do we do on a Shabbat when we mention the Mem Heshi? What are we doing with it? You know what we're doing with it? It's a healing device. What do you mean it's a healing device? What does that mean, a healing device? We create healing energy. No such thing as healing energy, although we use it for that. But what does it mean, a healing energy? That with these three particular letters, so we were told by the Zohar, that these three generate on Shabbat, unfortunately, only on Shabbat. Does it do a job on the weekdays? Well, I've been told that Mahash generates some energy in the weekdays too. What do you mean it generates energy? How do these words generate? How does it generate energy? How does fuel generate energy? Well, we become accustomed to the idea that if you ignite fuel, you have energy. You ignite fuel. You have to ignite the fuel. What about the fuel itself? Will anything happen with the fuel itself? No. Again, you have to use a process of light. Why do you need a process of light? Why do we need a process of a spark to ignite the bulb? Without the spark, does it mean to light, lahavlik? No. You know what lahavlik means? Lahavlik is striking a match. Even when you light the wick, you're lighting the wick. But the process that actually contains the light is not your lighting the wick. What is the wick? What is a wick? What is fuel? An inanimate object. But what it contains, like everything else, like our bodies, we already contain the light force capacity. This light force, this olam haba that we've been discussing, olam haba. This totality of the light force of God's energy, which now presently is concealed, unfortunately, for most of us. There are devices, how you ignite it. But what happens with those energy forces that are ignited through material means? What happens with it? Dissipates. All the electrical current that we're using here is being dissipated. And we gradually draw more and more and more. There's got to be a constant stream. If there should be disruption, even though we have ignited this lamp, but if the power station should cut off, what happens? Nothing. Because it needs a constant flow of the material. This flipping the switch, lighting the wick. If the wick ends, or if the oil ends, there's no light. Because what is being revealed is what is internally encapsulated by electrical current, by the fuel. Says the Zohar, these letters are the encapsulations. These 3 verses are the encapsulations of what? They represent the different aspects already that we are familiar with in a bulb. In a bulb, what do you have? You have to have a right pole, a left pole, a filament. These three verses already represent what is the right pole. Right pole is chesed. In a very crude way, we generate energy in a bulb in a very crude way. That's why it doesn't last. In a very crude way, this positive pole represents the chesed energy, a revealment of chesed energy. The first letter of all of these 72 names, they are eternal. The letters are eternal. These letters are eternal encapsulations of chesed of Abraham. What the positive bulb here does for us in a bulb, this does it for us eternally. But it has one other advantage. One other advantage, which unfortunately this bulb does not have, and that is the capacity to reveal to the extent of the light force. How much of the light force is revealed? I can tell you immediately. You become healed if this bulb goes on. You feel better maybe. Instead of sitting in a dark room, now you've got a little candle lighting, you feel a little better, you feel a little less, in fact, with this. Whatever the reasons are simply because this bulb, the bulb does not reveal a larger dimension than a candle, a lesser dimension than a candle. Why do you feel good in candle lighting? Because it reveals a higher dimension, a higher capacity of energy. It makes you feel good. That's what the Zohar said. You samach lev. It makes you feel good. Oil is a greater dimension. Is a greater dimension. Says the Zohar. But the ayin bet shemot. Now here you had the candelabra. What could be more powerful than the candelabra? Says the Zohar, and that's why the Zohar mentions the idea of the 72 names in this week's Parsha, which it doesn't seem to have any relevance. But we are talking about Vayibn Soah Ha'aron. Now you want to talk about the level of capacity of revelation, of energy? The maximum. What does that maximum mean? That amount of energy that is healing, that amount of energy that reveals tomorrow. Why don't we see tomorrow? So picture it no less than if you're in a corridor or you're in a room that's 75 blocks long and you have a candle. How far does this little candle extend? Maybe a block, 2, 3, 4. When you walk down the 58th block, you're in total darkness because the light does not extend that far. Now, if you should have not a candle or a bulb, but a floodlight, it'll extend even further. In other words, the stronger the dimension, it extends beyond the present, beyond the here and now. So too, as we discussed time, if we make use, and that is the purpose of the 72 names, what we're doing is making use of an instrument, not unlike fuel, unlike a bulb, unlike any other mechanical devices that produce, like rockets, produce an enormous amount of energy required to lift off this capsule, to break through the corridors of the Van Allen belts, to break through, requires such an enormous amount of energy. The 72 names is the epitome of the fulfillment of energy. And therefore, how far does this energy extend? Says the Zohar. It extends from the beginning to the end. The beginning of time to the end of time. There is no yesterday, and there is therefore no tomorrow, because at the present time, everything is illuminated, including yesterday and, of course, including tomorrow. And the reason that these letters have that capacity, because just as in every instrument that produces energy, when I say produces energy, it's the wrong word. The word is Beha'alotcha. Beha'alotcha et hanerot. That reveals energy, not produces energy. The word is wrong. As if we are creating energy. We are not creating energy. What we are creating, what we have created, is a capacity or an ability to reveal the energy which is there, encapsulated, dormant, passive, only because it remains unrevealed. It remains concealed. It is just like the Torah. That's why the Zohar connects this idea of the physical Torah. It's like the wick. What does a wick do? Does a wick reveal energy? Yes. What kind of energy? Such a minute degree of energy. Such a minute degree of energy. But the wick reveals more if the wick contains oil. If the wick is part of of wax, it does not create. It does not reveal. Well, I shouldn't use the word create. It does not reveal the same level of the intensity of the light force of God, which is what is motivating everything in this world. The extent that we reveal, the extent that the capacity, the ability is expanded, just like a bulb, as opposed to a candle, whether it be oil or it be wax. Different dimensions. Where is the different dimension? Does the light have different dimensions? Of course not. There is no difference in the light. It is the degree of how much light is revealed. No difference than in a long tunnel. The further removed from the candle, there's darkness. Does that mean there's no light there? Of course there's light. Einstein proved that light is everywhere. Light is everywhere. Although he contradicted himself by saying that light travels at a speed of 186,000 miles per second, contradicts, as we know, the other observation that he made, that when you're walking or you're running towards a flashlight and there's an impact, or you run away from the flashlight and there's an impact, it is similar, as Einstein said, to two automobiles, a head-on crash, both traveling at 60 miles an hour, or both traveling in the same direction at 60 miles an hour. Or he picks up a little speed and travels at 70 miles an hour, and then there's an impact. Where is there a greater impact? Of course there's a greater impact, head-on collision. Einstein did not observe any difference between the person walking towards the flashlight or away from the flashlight. The rational mind does not conceive that there is no difference. The rational mind conceives an impact greater in when one walks towards the light as opposed to when one is walking away from the light. It's so simple for the logical mind to grasp that concept. Yet, and from that he concluded that light must be everywhere. And so, whether you're walking away from the light or towards the light, you're always walking towards the light. Even when you walk away from this flashlight, you're walking against some other light. But he still came to his contradictory conclusion that he could not accept, today is being disproven, that there is no limitation There is no such thing as 186,000 miles per second, because there are things that move at a faster acceleration. His only problem was that if you travel faster than 186,000 miles per second, then you can go back in time. Then it means that yesterday, today, and tomorrow is all here now. That became a problem for him. Became a problem. What the Zohar is saying here, that the reason why these 72 names are so powerful is because these first letters of each of these 72 names, Kol Elu Habayim Mitzido, all of these particular letters, when these letters were written in the Torah, seemed to just tell us an event about what a cloud was doing, what an angel was doing. And that story not only it seems to be irrelevant, it has no significance. Certainly for us today, forgetting about that, it has no significance for us today. But even then, so what? And therefore the Zohar concluded that this was the package. The package for what? Merely to tell us a hidden meaning? What do you mean by a hidden meaning? There is no hidden meanings. Yes, we give a deeper explanation. But the explanation is for what purpose? Was it just, as I once thought when I came to learn Kabbalah, and it said, Boel Paro, come to Pharaoh. And of course everyone translates Boel Paro, go to Pharaoh. Because how can you say come to Pharaoh? God is talking to Moses, come to Pharaoh. You should say go to Pharaoh. You're instructing him to go to Pharaoh. So the Zohar explains, no, the word is bo, but come up to the source of his energy. Come up to the supernal angel that provides Pharaoh with his energy, because that's where the war has got to take place. Oh, that was beautiful. So we didn't have to corrupt the word bo now into meaning go, which it never did mean. And so we had a beautiful explanation. And I thought that was the extent. With that revelation of the meaning, we are revealing an aspect, a level of energy. Revelation of an idea is revelation of energy. Today they talk that way. Information is what? Energy. Superhighways of information. Energy. Everything is being classified as energy. Well, the Zohar was way ahead of these ideas, but with one difference. He's providing the system. They haven't found yet the system. Not only haven't they found the system, but there's another problem. All that energy becomes so full of an accumulation of information. Now what do you do with it? What do you do with all this information? How do you arrive at what you're supposed to do? Well, now they give you stacks and stacks of papers. So you put them into a computer. Hopefully maybe the computer can come up with some information, but you can't. These particular letters, says the Zohar, each and every single one of those letters are already created with the total maximum capacity. Unlike the wick, unlike petroleum, unlike rocket engines, they have the total capacity of revealing the full extent of the light force. When you reveal the full extent of light force, does the bulb help you in seeing now what stock to buy for tomorrow? Of course not. What does that have to do with it? Give me a little light so I can read. What does the rocket engine do? What does the rocket engine do for the space shuttles? What does it do? Provide you with information for tomorrow? Does it give you information? Well, they say, if you do that, you travel up there, you get younger. No new concept. What does it mean you get younger? You can go back in time. Okay. It's a departure from the way we understood. After what is time? Every minute that goes by, we're getting 1 year older. 1 minute older. Every minute. You get 1 minute older. Yet, you go up into another dimension, you get 1 minute younger. Wow. You can get younger. How can you get younger? We just discussed that time, with every passing minute, has already become part of the past. Now we're learning. No. That 5:01, if we began at 5, and 5:01 means we're 1 minute older. 1 minute has become part of the past. No, but another dimension. Take that time capsule, and what happens when you travel from 5 to 5:01? You get back to 4:99. 4 hour, 59 minutes. Wait a second. By moving into another dimension, not only did I lose a minute, but I gained a minute. It took me a minute to get back to 4 hours, 59 minutes. Does the rational mind conceive of that? Absolutely not. But this is the capability because it has that total dimension where the idea of 4 hour 59 and 5:01 will disappear. That is an illusion. That is a complete illusion. Although we use it for points, but it is an illusion. That's revelation. Thank you.